"Hit me harder, you're better than my husband." That's what I heard coming from the bedroom. It was my wife, and man, she sounded more into it than I've heard in a long time. It felt like a punch to the gut, but instead of busting in there, I just cracked a small cold smile. This was all part of my plan. I just walked away quietly, a key in my pocket that was about to unlock a whole lot of payback. They probably thought they were slick, having a little secret fling on a random afternoon, but they had no clue what I had coming for them. I wasn't just flying off the handle here. I was playing the long game, and I was going to make sure they regretted ever messing with me. I'm Kevin, and this is how I got back at my cheating wife. Normally, I'm not the type to scheme and plot, but they pushed me into it. It all kicked off with some shady texts between her and her ex. Cheating is the worst, right? I might have let it slide if she had just been honest, begged me to forgive her, and really wanted to make it work. But after seeing what he texted her, that's when I started putting my plan together. So we met online, and maybe I should have played it cooler, but I took her to this fancy restaurant and showed up in my Lexus when I dropped her off. I was trying to impress her, but looking back, maybe she was just seeing dollar signs. I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but you know how it goes. Men hunt, women gather. That's just nature, right? I really fell for her. It wasn't even official or anything. We just sort of ended up together. I'd pick her up from work, spoil her like she was royalty. New iPhone? Got it. Didn't feel like cooking? I'd order her some sushi. We did it all. Museums, concerts, baseball games. I really went all out. And that's where I messed up. I built this perfect little world where she was my queen. But then it hit me. Maybe she wasn't in love with me, just the lifestyle I was giving her. And her loser ex? He was having fun behind my back. Not anymore, though. Anyway, let me tell you about our first kiss. It was amazing, but the first time we really got together. Man, it was one of those nights she was too beat to cook, so I brought over Mexican food, her favorite. After we ate, I was about to head out, still not sure if we were actually a thing or just hanging out, even though I'd kissed her the day before. That first kiss the previous day was quick, kind of a surprise. Her lips were so soft. I kept thinking about it, replaying it over in my mind. But that night, as I was getting ready to leave, something made me stay. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, or maybe I just didn't want the evening to end yet. I saw my chance to find out more about how she felt. I threw on the notebook, her favorite flick, and sat a bit closer, finally touching her hand. I told her she had soft hands, and she smiled, kind of signaling she was into it. There was this look in her eyes, like she knew what I was hoping for. I wasn't sure if we'd go beyond kissing, but being there felt incredible, and I decided to see where the night would take us. As I leaned in and kissed her, there was this electric charge. This time, she didn't pull back. She kissed me back, passionately. It felt like we both wanted this so badly. I started kissing her neck, and she moaned a bit, letting me know I found the right spot. Encouraged, I kissed her even harder. The room got hotter by the minute. She pulled me closer while putting her hand down my pants, whispering how much she wanted this. After she slid her hand down my pants, a rush of excitement surged through me. We were both hungry for each other, every move fueled by a mix of desire and nerves. I responded by kissing her deeply, running my hands through her hair and down her back, pulling her even closer if that was possible. The couch became our little world, with every cushion and inch of space, an invitation to explore further. As we moved together, the rest of the room faded away, leaving just the sound of our breaths and the beating of our hearts. It was intense and intimate, each of us giving and taking in equal measure, learning the language of each other's pleasure. It was the hottest, most intense night ever, full of raw emotions and wild pleasure. As we lay entwined afterwards, catching our breath and soaking in the afterglow of our connection, I realized this was more than just a fling. It wasn't just the physical that had drawn us together. It was something deeper, an emotional bond that kept growing stronger each moment we spent together. Holding her close, feeling her heartbeat sync with mine, I knew this night would forever be a milestone in my life. It was the moment when what we had sparked into a flame, promising to keep burning strong. That night sealed the deal for me. I was all in, committed to making her happy. Being with her felt so right, especially since she had her own place. It gave us a sense of freedom. One evening, still riding the high of our deepening relationship, I just said it. This is what I want forever. Her eyes widened. Is that a proposal? It hit me right then. Why not? Yeah, I said with a grin. So, what do you say? Just like that, we got engaged. We kept the wedding small, but it was perfect for us. And the honeymoon? Let's just say it was all beaches and bare essentials. The first year as a married couple was like living in a dream. Then reality hit with my job loss. It wasn't something I could shake off easily. I tried everything, but jobs were just not sticking. At first, she was incredibly supportive, always there to soothe me with words of encouragement after each rejection. We'll get through this, she'd reassure me, massaging my back to ease the tension. As the bills mounted, our once encouraging conversations turned into panicked rants. She'd panic, saying things like, "We might lose the apartment." I hated seeing her so desperate. I kept reassuring her that I'd figure things out, but truth be told, I was starting to panic too. It wasn't just about the financial strain. One night, after we argued about yet another overdue bill, she dropped a bombshell. "This isn't how I pictured married life." That comment cut deep. After that, every little thing seemed to set us off. Dirty dishes, forgotten errands, you name it, we argued about it. The tension built up until we were having full-blown shouting matches. The worst part? We were losing our connection. She started pulling away physically. If I reached out to touch her, she'd flinch or turn away, pretending to sleep as soon as I got into bed. The coldness between us was worse than any loneliness I had felt when I was single. Our marriage wasn't just under financial strain, it was falling apart. And somewhere inside, I missed the days when I could effortlessly make her happy before everything went downhill. Then finally I landed a job. It wasn't the most exciting position, but it paid the bills and gave me a sense of purpose again. Slowly, day by day, life started to feel more normal. My bank account grew healthier, and I began to feel like I had control over my life again. But at home things were different. With my new job stabilizing our finances, I tried to revive the old days. I took her out for dinners, brought back small luxuries we had cut off during the hard times, hoping to mend our relationship. I was playing the role of the doting husband, expecting her to appreciate the efforts. Instead, her reaction was lukewarm, almost indifferent. It seemed no matter what I did, the distance between us remained, a reminder that maybe some scars ran deeper than financial woes. The spark I desperately wanted to reignite seemed permanently out. Even as I tried to draw out her laughter, it felt hollow. She wore the new clothes I bought her, enjoyed the fancy meals, but there was a distance in her eyes, like she was someone I no longer knew. At night I'd lay awake, her steady breathing a harsh reminder of the gap between us. This wasn't the life I had envisioned, and clearly, it wasn't an issue that money could resolve. I started to wonder if I'd missed something critical in our past, maybe a dismissive comment or a look of disdain during my tougher times. Had she always just seen me as a provider, sticking around for the lifestyle? This doubt ate away at me, turning the pleasure of my financial recovery to dust. One evening, after a particularly silent dinner, I collapsed onto the couch, feeling drained and defeated. That's when I noticed her phone left carelessly on the coffee table, lighting up with a new message. I knew I shouldn't look, but the need to understand her coldness overwhelmed me. The message was from an unfamiliar name, but its contents were unmistakable. "Can't stop thinking about last night, you were amazing." The discovery hit me like a physical blow. She wasn't just unhappy, she was seeking and finding joy with someone else. And the thought that it could have been happening right under my nose twisted the knife deeper. That night I said nothing, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I lay there wrestling with my thoughts. Part of me wanted to confront her, to unleash all my pain and anger, but another part hesitated. Was there still a way to salvage our relationship? Could I really continue living with someone who might be cheating? The uncertainty was paralyzing, and as dawn approached, I was no closer to an answer. The only thing I knew for sure was that something had to change. So I came up with a plan, a pretty dumb one looking back. I thought if I started treating her like a princess again like I used to, maybe she'd come clean, confess her cheating, and beg for forgiveness. It was a long shot, but I was desperate to try anything. I pulled out all the stops. There were flowers on the table just because, dinners at upscale restaurants, and nights out dancing at clubs we hadn't visited in years. I showered her with gifts, small things she had wanted, hoping to rekindle some of the magic we once had. But nothing really changed. She'd smile when I handed her flowers, laugh at my jokes, but her eyes were still distant. Sure, we were intimate, but it felt forced on her part, just going through the motions without any real passion. It felt more like an obligation than a connection, and I despised it. Then one night, while she was asleep, the temptation to check her phone overwhelmed me. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help myself. What I found was a trail of messages with her ex, stretching back for months. Their text started off innocent enough, but soon became more intimate. He was bragging about being with my wife, and then I saw a message that froze my blood. I might not have your husband's cash, but I've got something he doesn't. And hey, if he accidentally ends up dead, we could have that money too. Followed by laughing emojis. Her response? Just smiley faces, as if they were sharing a private joke. In that moment, something snapped inside me. Was I just a joke to them? That's when I decided. No more playing the fool. It was clear then, as I sat in the dark staring at those messages, what I needed to do. The blueprint for my revenge began to form, clear and precise. I had never been more sure of anything in my life. If they thought this was a game, I was about to change the rules. Realizing I needed to protect myself financially and legally, I made the move to install hidden cameras in our bedroom. The thought of divorce was definitely on the table, but I was determined to ensure that when I walked away, it would be with my finances intact. Beyond just the divorce, I was fueled by a desire to get even with her ex, who seemed all too happy to mock the life I had built. Installing the cameras turned out to be simpler than I expected. I had gifted her a spa day, and while she enjoyed her time unwinding, I was setting up the cameras discreetly around the bedroom. Everything was in place by the time she returned. The cameras weren't just recording, they were my eyes when I couldn't bear to be near her. The first time I reviewed the footage and saw them together, my heart nearly stopped. I came home that afternoon, half ready to burst in on them, but at the last minute I was able to stop myself. Instead, I stood outside, the sound of her voice echoing, those words, "Do it harder, you're better than my husband," slicing through me. It was a brutal moment of truth, and it was then that I knew I needed to gather more comprehensive evidence. With every passing day, they unknowingly walked deeper into my trap. Yet, the emotional toll of living under the same roof, seeing her day after day, was overwhelming. I had to devise a new plan, one that would allow me to continue collecting the evidence I needed, without having to confront this painful situation daily. I started thinking about how I could possibly maintain my sanity while executing my plan to its fullest. My new strategy involved concocting a believable cover story. I called her to announce a sudden promotion at work that required me to travel to Mexico for an entire month. She played her part well, sounding supportive over the phone, yet I detected a faint relief in her voice, almost as if the idea of my absence was welcome to her. The moment we ended the call, she wasted no time contacting her ex to relay the great news. Now he could visit her freely. While the initial recordings from the hidden cameras didn't reveal much, it was the third session that caught a conversation that turned shockingly dark. Out of the blue, he suggested they take a trip to Wolfboro. Her response was sharp. "Nelson, did you forget I hate that place?" His surprise was evident. Her next words chilled me. "You surprised? Forgot about the girl we killed?" He hurried to reassure her. "Hey, come on, we didn't kill anyone. It was just a car accident, Erin. You gotta let that go. It happened way before you were married. Did anyone find out?" "No. So, chill out about it," he tried to soothe her. This revelation was staggering. I was initially gathering evidence of her infidelity, hoping to use it in a potential divorce, but now I found myself with evidence that hinted at a past crime. This information cast a sinister shadow over my plans for revenge, intertwining them with something far graver than I had anticipated. My impromptu trip to Wolfboro was fueled by a desperate need to uncover anything about the supposed car accident Erin had mentioned. Wolfboro wasn't too far, but I had no real plan on how to dig up information about a girl allegedly killed years ago. It was late when I got there, so I decided to hit a local bar, hoping maybe to overhear something useful or just to clear my head. After a few too many drinks, I found myself spilling my guts to the bartender, a woman with striking green eyes and curly hair. I never expected to see her again, so I openly discussed my reason for visiting Wolfboro. As soon as I mentioned a car accident and a body dumped in a lake, she abruptly cut me off. Her intense interest caught me off guard. "Did you say there was a car accident? They dumped the body in the lake?" she asked, leaning in closer. That was all the information I had, and I explained that it supposedly happened a couple of years ago. Her next words sobered me up faster than anything else could have. "The body they dumped into the lake, that's me. I'm not dead." My heart skipped a beat. I had to know more about her story. She went on to explain that she was the girl supposed to have died in that accident. A few days after the incident, someone found her and rushed her to the hospital. Sadly, her injuries were severe, and she lost a leg, but she survived. She had reported the whole thing to the police, but they hadn't been able to turn up any leads or make any arrests. Nice, I thought to myself. I mean, it was incredible that she was alive. I told her how relieved I was that she hadn't died. Though my comment seemed to catch her off guard, she thanked me. Sitting there listening to her story, I knew I had stumbled onto something far bigger than I had anticipated, and it was tying back to Erin in ways I hadn't imagined. So I asked her straight up if she wanted some payback, and man, she was all in. She told me the accident really wrecked her life. It threw her into a deep depression, and she's only recently started feeling a bit more like herself, which is why she ended up working at the bar. Then she hit me with something that really got to me. She was worried that no guy would want her because of her missing leg. That was a heavy blow. I could see it really bothered her. She kinda apologized for dumping all that on me, worried she was oversharing about how she thought she wasn't attractive to guys anymore. But right then, I really saw her, you know, and not just her looks, which were stunning, by the way. But there was something else about her. She was real, spoke her heart out, and you could tell she used to be super confident. You could still see bits of that strength shining through. I don't know what got into me, but I had to tell her what I was thinking, that she must have been this strong, confident woman. And I couldn't help myself. I told her she was the most beautiful woman I'd seen in a long while. She didn't skip a beat, thanked me and said I was right. That accident and losing her leg changed her life so much. She felt like she'd lost who she really was. I was beginning to see the true self she talked about. I've always admired people who speak their minds freely without holding back, and she was definitely like that even now. I guess it all started that night. That's when I began falling for her. She must have noticed the change in me. "Hey, mister, don't fall in love with me," she joked, noticing how my gaze lingered on her. I really did start seeing her differently. I couldn't take my eyes off her. "With my leg, I'm only a burden, so don't," she said with a genuine laugh, brushing off her own concerns with humor. "Mr. Brooks," I said, "but please call me Kevin." "And I'm Hazel. Nice to meet you, Kevin," she responded. "Nice to meet you too, Hazel. You have such a beautiful name," I replied. "Kevin, are you okay?" she asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. I was puzzled and asked why she thought something might be wrong. "Well, you keep complimenting me. Maybe a bit too much," she said, her laughter ringing genuine and warm. Right then I realized I was starting to like everything about her. Her laughter, her directness, her spirit. It all drew me in more deeply than I had expected. Even though Hazel seemed to enjoy my compliments, I don't think she took them too seriously. It felt like her reactions were more about her own insecurities regarding her leg than about me personally. She appeared to brush off the compliments, possibly doubting their sincerity. I decided not to push too hard, not wanting to make her feel uncomfortable. So, I changed the subject. "So, what do you say about getting your revenge?" I asked, hoping to shift the focus away from us and onto something else. Then her demeanor shifted. "Look, the accident changed my life for the worse, but I think I've gotten over it," she said thoughtfully, showing a resolve to move past her previous trauma. After leaving the bar, I said goodbye to Hazel, careful not to make her feel any more uncomfortable than she already was. As I walked back to my hotel, Her strength and openness stayed on my mind. I found myself wondering what life would be like if someone like her was my wife, instead of Erin. Back in my hotel room, Hazel's words about moving past her accident echoed in my head. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to let go of all this anger and just get a divorce from Erin. But as I settled in, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to check the videos one more time. That's when I saw it, a new video of Erin and Nelson. In the video, Nelson made a joke about visiting Wolfboro again, but Erin quickly shut him down. "Never again," she snapped. "Remember the girl we hit?" Nelson laughed it off, chillingly saying, "Come on, she's dead. What could she ever do?" Then he said something even worse, joking about me. "What if your husband died in a car accident too?" Hearing that, everything changed for me. Any thoughts of just walking away vanished. This wasn't just infidelity. It was outright cruelty, a complete disregard for life. I knew I couldn't just let it go. I needed to do something, not just for myself, but now for Hazel too. The next morning, while having breakfast at a local cafe, I ran into Hazel again. She noticed the serious look on my face and tried to lighten the mood with a joke. "You must be a different person when you're not drunk," she quipped, flashing a playful smile. "Not really," I replied, shaking my head slightly. "I just saw them, Erin and Nelson, talking about you and me last night." Her smile faded into a look of concern. "What were they saying?" she asked, leaning in closer. I hesitated for a moment, unsure how to bring it up, but I decided to just be direct. "It's not good, Hazel. Nelson made some cruel jokes about the accident, and even about something happening to me." Seeing her reaction, I quickly pulled up the video on my phone and showed her the footage. Her face hardened as she listened to Nelson's words, her earlier playfulness replaced by anger and determination. After the video ended, Hazel took a deep breath, visibly shaken. The color drained from her face as she processed what she had just heard. "I can't believe they're joking about this. After that accident, my life turned into a nightmare and they're laughing as if I'm a joke," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of shock and anger. She looked up at me, her eyes fierce with a new resolve. "This changes everything," she declared firmly. "I can't let them just get away with this. I want to help you, Kevin. It's time they learned their lesson. I'm in for whatever plan you have. We need to get back at them." Late one night, Hazel and I finally hammered out our plan. We were both anxious, but the overwhelming need for justice kept pushing us forward. Hazel's hand shook as she typed out the message, her expression fierce and determined. "I've come back for you, Erin and Nelson. Remember me from the lake?" She read it aloud, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. Without allowing herself a moment of doubt, she hit send. The next day was a real nail-biter. Hazel and I were on edge, just waiting to see if our plan would freak them out like we hoped. It didn't take long before Erin started freaking out, a bunch of scared calls to Nelson. She was so spooked that she begged him to come over fast. Once he showed up, they got right into it. And yep, the cameras recorded every single word. I sat there watching the footage, feeling sick to my stomach. Erin was losing it, her voice all shaky as she told Nelson about Hazel's message. "She says she's back from the dead, Nelson. What if she comes for us? You were the one who hit her. It was your idea to dump her in the lakey." You could see Nelson was scared too, even though he tried to act tough. "It's just a sick joke, Erin. Who else could know?" he said, trying to brush it off, but his voice was shaking. Then things really heated up between them, and thank goodness the cameras didn't miss a beat. "You threw her away like she was nothing. I was too shocked to even move," Erin screamed out, admitting what they did. "No, you helped carry the body, remember?" Nelson fired back at her. "The whole thing was a mess, and now we had them right where we wanted, scared and spilling secrets." I shut off the camera, a mix of victory and disgust swirling inside me. We had them, clear as day, their own words admitting everything. Hazel stood next to me, her face serious. "What now?" she asked, her voice quiet but tense. "We take this to the cops," I told her, my voice steady, "and we try to get this story out there. Everyone needs to know what they've done." Going to the police station was intense. We handed over the tapes and laid out the whole story from the beginning. The cops were a bit doubtful at first, but the footage spoke for itself. They agreed to look into reopening the case with this new evidence. Walking out of the station, Both Hazel and I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off our shoulders, but at the same time, a new worry started to nag at us. Had we pushed things too far? Was this really about getting justice, or had we crossed into darker territory? But then again, they were the ones who pushed me to this point. It all started because of what they did. After that, the media jumped on the story and it blew up. News vans and reporters everywhere, the whole city buzzing about the couple who thought they had dodged a murder charge. Erin and Nelson were hauled in for questioning. Their lives flipped upside down as they got tangled in the legal system. After everything that had happened, Hazel and I could finally relax a bit, feeling like a massive burden had been lifted. As the news broke and Erin and Nelson were arrested, we knew we had played our part right. That evening, we decided to celebrate our small victory. We chose a cozy restaurant, somewhere with dim lighting and a warm atmosphere that made the evening feel extra special. During dinner, we steered clear of all the drama we'd been through. Instead, we talked about the future, focusing on simple, everyday joys that suddenly seemed so precious. Caught up in the emotions of the evening and our newfound freedom, I invited Hazel back to my hotel room after dinner. There was an undeniable connection between us, a spark that had been simmering under the surface, now too strong to ignore. That night we made love for the first time. It was intense and passionate, more so than anything I had ever experienced. Hazel confided that it had been a long time for her too, and that it was the best she'd had as well. The next morning it was clear that what we shared wasn't just a one-off thing driven by the moment's adrenaline. It felt real and right. We started dating, taking things slowly at first, but it quickly became clear that we had something special. As time passed, Erin and Nelson faced their trial. The evidence we had provided was incontrovertible, and they both ended up in prison for their crimes. Meanwhile, I finalized my divorce from Erin, closing that painful chapter of my life. As I started my relationship with Hazel, I was careful not to repeat the mistakes I made with Erin. I didn't offer Hazel a luxurious life or try to impress her with gifts. Instead, I focused on just being there for her. At first I was worried, afraid she might want more than I was offering, but it turned out Hazel wasn't interested in materialistic things. She loved me for who I was, not for what I could give her. Realizing this made me fall even deeper in love with her. Seeing how genuine and real she was, I started treating her even better than I had anyone before, not only with gifts, but with love, respect, and devotion. I learned that being myself was enough, that genuine connection was worth more than all the luxuries in the world. Our relationship grew stronger every day, grounded in mutual respect and true affection. Hazel showed me what a real partnership was, and every day with her was a lesson in love, and I found myself more fulfilled and happier than I had ever been, knowing I was loved for just being me.
If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and leaving a comment to show your support. Your engagement helps tremendously and encourages more stories like this one. Thank you for being a part of this journey.